Howdy all. As you can see, I'm not going to put a lot of effort into this video, and the reason why is I'm busy and I'm enjoying the decline, of course. And I just needed to respond to this, and I think it required a little bit more than a blog post, but at the same time, it takes a lot to do the videos. I know you've seen the PowerPoint present. For those of you who are regular readers, viewers, whatever you want to call it, they take a lot of time, especially you have to rehearse. And this is just something that I had to get out there, and hopefully it'll be visceral enough that it might have some kind of effect. Reader sent in a comment, and he was quoting a gal, and I'll paraphrase, something to the extent that the only thing carrying the private sector is the public sector, or the public sector is the only good thing going on in this economy. And kind of has like, I don't want to say it's for posterity, but as a vain hope to maybe explain how the real world economy works, that's why I'm putting this together. In the hopes of taking idiots like that, and I shouldn't call them idiots, taking people who are just plain not educated about basic economics, which most of us aren't, and seeing if I can simplify some things so that going forward, ultimately we can get out of this economic mess. Okay, so I guess this could be titled, How to Get Out of This Economic Mess. Right? Now first, forget everything you think you know about economics, because for the most part, and I'll admit, most economists are not charismatic, they're not entertaining, and they are like Ben Stein and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and they are, and economists deserve, well deserve the reputation they have as being nerdy guys who can't get laid, because I was one of them. But in any case, forget everything you've learned, and I'm going to try and paint a very, very simple economic picture for everyone out there, regardless of political ideology, and then you can take it from there whether you want to believe it or not, right? First, understand what economics is all about. Economics is not about money, it's not about business, it's not about commerce, it's not about oil, it's not about war. Economics is about stuff. It is about stuff. A lot of people think it's about money, but money is just how we trade stuff. If you think about it, you don't get money or go scrambling for a $20 bill on the ground because it's a $20 bill on the ground. You go scrambling for it because that's $20 worth of your time that you save that you can go and buy stuff with. It's the reason why when Adam Smith, who wrote The Wealth of Nations, he didn't write the money of nations, he was talking about wealth, the stuff that nations produce. And that's what makes a country rich, is what kind of stuff do we create and produce. It doesn't have to be physical stuff. It doesn't have to be like a camcorder or a computer or a Star Wars arcade game, or it doesn't have to be something tangible. It can be a service like a massage or tax preparation or lawyer services or train conductors. Whatever it is, anything that enhances and maintains our lives or improves our lives, that can be considered stuff. And that's good stuff. That's what makes a country rich. Another way to look at it is like when you have invading armies. They don't go running for the country, the invadee country's currency. They don't go run for, when the Germans were invading France, they weren't scrambling to grab French francs. They were scrambling to grab gold and paintings and stuff. That's what it is. So what really makes a nation or an economy strong or powerful is how much stuff can we produce. Okay? Now, going forward and kind of operating from that premise, you can go ahead and move all the money around that you want. That's not going to help people produce stuff. You got to incentive the people to produce as much stuff as possible. Well, how do you do that? Well, one thing is to not tax them to death. And I don't mean to get political, but good Lord, I mean, and you look it up yourself. Right now, the government spends 40% of our GDP, or government spending accounts for 40% of GDP. That's state, federal, and local. And if you don't know what GDP, that's the size of our economy. That's how much stuff we produce. They talk GDP, say, what does that mean? I don't care, some economists. And trillions, millions, billions. Admit it if you don't know the difference between a billion and a trillion. Just admit it right now, okay? But we produce about $15.5 trillion worth of stuff in the United States. But the government, I don't care to get into the boring aspects of economic accounting and national income accounts, the government spends 40% of that, okay? Now, the question is, who really produces the stuff? What entity in the economy produces the stuff? And there's two lines of thought. One that is just plain out wrong. One line of thought is that, well, it's the private sector, the people that produce the stuff. And there's another one that says, well, the government can produce the stuff. And obviously this would generally fall on the lines of conservative and liberal, but take the politics out of it, ask yourself this question. What has to come first in order for the other to exist? Does a government form first, and then an economy build around it? Is that like, oh, well, we're going to form a government, and then all of a sudden people come and they start producing stuff? Or is it that a population or a society grows or gets large enough that it almost becomes a necessity to have some form of government? And what you realize is that government does not exist without the people first. There has to be an economy and a country first to govern, as thus the verb, base verb, Latin verb, whatever. I didn't study English too much. The base word of government is to govern. Well, govern what? Well, it implies there has to be something there. Primarily an economy and a people. So it's really putting the cart before the horse. If you know what, hang on, I'll be back though. Okay, so I don't have PowerPoint, but this will be the same thing. It is putting the cart, denoted by cart, before the horse. See, the cart does not pull the horse, or the horse does not push the cart. It doesn't work that way. You have the horse pull the cart. This is the private sector. This is the people. Because without the horse, without people who actually produce the stuff, there is no reason for the cart to exist. The cart will go nowhere. Right? Ultimately, what you see is that the relationship between the private sector and the public sector is that the private sector is the host, and the government is the parasite. I don't mean that in a pejorative sense. I mean this in a symbiotic relationship where the host and the parasite help one another. And there are some instances in the animal kingdom where the parasite actually helps the host. And that's supposed to be the role of the government. The government helps the horse. It helps the private sector. And how do we do this? Well, by implementing things like laws, and having a judicial system, and having police, and having defense, having some I know some people go crazy with me in the libertarian world, but some regulation. It makes it so that businesses it's safe to operate. You can transport your goods and your services. Whatever, various universal public goods that the government creates to make it so that the people can go and thrive and kick ass and take names that produce a lot of stuff. Well, that used to be the way it was. Now you have government going way beyond what its original charter was, and it has become a genuine parasite. If you look at government spending, and again, don't believe me. You know, you all want to be, oh, I'm so open-minded and intellectually honest. Okay, get off your lazy asses, go to the little typity-type computer and look it up on them there interwebs, which we didn't have. We didn't have the internet in our days. Okay, go there. Look it up. Don't believe me. Look at state budgets and look at federal budget, and you'll see that roughly 70%, depends on the state, but the federal government, 70%, actually, you know what, I'll put my chart up and I'll edit this. 70% of the spending goes to wealth transfers and social programs. We're paying people not to produce stuff. Okay? That now makes the government genuinely parasitic. You're living off of the genuine producers to pay for a parasitic class. And again, it's not to sound like a negative, like, oh, you're being a parasite. That's what you are. If you don't work, you don't produce anything of value, then you, by default, unless you're dead, you gotta be living off of somebody. Somebody's making your food for you. Somebody's providing your clothing and shelter. Somebody's providing your heat and your electricity. Well, those are the people that are producing the stuff. Now, as time has gone on, you'll see it, you want to look at the charts, whatever, the government has grown from roughly 3% of GDP back in the 1901, 1900, to today where it's about 40%, state and federal and local. And everyone, especially with Barack Obama saying, you know, you didn't build that, you didn't do this. And I know he may have been taken slightly out of context. I genuinely believe he thinks that the government plays some role in building this economy. not to the extent that he has deluded himself into thinking. You have to understand Barack Obama, and this isn't necessarily a slight on just Democrats, but if you look at Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, you could look at George Bush, or George Herbert Walker, 41, Bush 41. You can look at pretty much every politician, regardless of what political stripe they are. None of them have worked in the private sector in their lives. Barack Obama worked at one place like a year. And his entire life, he's been in a non-profit public sector politician. Right? He doesn't know how to make stuff. He doesn't know how to run a business. He's all he knows, and I don't believe he's even intelligent or experienced enough to understand how the private sector and the public sector should be working together. He doesn't know the role of the public sector. He thinks the public sector is there, and that's how economic growth is made. When again, he's putting the cart before the horse and doesn't realize that there would be no need for government if there was no private sector. So, in short, to get out of this economic mess, there's only one way out of it, people. And it's not to champion through the government. The government doesn't produce anything. It can transfer money. It can provide some public goods and services like defense and roads. And people say, well, that's stuff. Yes, yeah, to some extent, a road is a thing. It is a stuff, but everybody uses it, right? If you want to get this economy going, all you liberal arts majors who want to major in fluffy unicorns and communications and philosophy and French sculpture and gay transgender turtle studies, who obviously right off the bat were too damn lazy to actually say, maybe I should become an engineer and actually produce the stuff people want. Sorry, I went on a tangent. I dislike liberal arts majors. Not personal, I just dislike how they did. You obviously had no desire to produce stuff. Your goal was, I'm going to become a teacher. Well, teachers don't produce stuff. I know you teach I know. But in the end, you teach what? So that those kids can go simply reteach other future education majors down the road? We all can't be government workers. Somebody's got to produce the stuff. So who's going to produce the stuff? It's got to be the private sector. Because you have to champion the private sector. You can't keep pulling this Keynesian, frankly, bullshit where, well, the government, we need to do quantity easing 16, and we need to spend more money, we need more government spending, and no. All right, what's going to get the economy going, Nancy Pelosi, is not welfare checks or food stamps or whatever idiotic thing you said because you're a spoiled little brat from Baltimore. All right, that's not what's going to do it. It's going to be lowering the freaking taxes, and even now, more importantly than lower, because we have actually pretty low taxes. It's the spending, that's why we have a deficit. But it's stability right now. It's people saying, am I going to get to be able to keep the majority of my stuff or the majority of my income? Or are you going to tax it away? Businesses right now are sitting on, last I heard it was over $1 trillion, but now I've seen some figures saying $2 trillion. A lot of stinking money, and they're not investing in the United States because they're afraid it's going to be confiscated or it's going to be taxed. What we need right now to get out of this economic crisis, or doldrums, or whatever you want to call it, is a guarantee from the public sector that you're not going to go and confiscate our wealth and our stuff and our income. That there are, and I've advocated this before, but I'm too much of a loudmouth to get publicly elected. There should be a constitutional amendment that says the government will never spend beyond 20%, state, federal, and local will never spend beyond 20% GDP. That guarantees that the vast majority of people get to keep the vast majority of their stuff. And you'll have people come in and flood the markets. You should eliminate corporate taxes. What the hell are you people thinking? Corporations are not your enemy. Oh, you all want jobs. Well, guess where jobs come from? Companies, which are formed by people. But you want to punish corporations? You want to send them away? They're leaving. They're investing overseas. They're not investing here. But we got a 40% tax. And I know you liberals, your effective tax rate is 17. Yeah, but they got to spend billions of dollars a year and billions of hours of accountants and lawyers going and figuring out this complex tax system, and just to effectively get it down to a 32% tax rate, depending on what statistics you want to cite. The larger point is there shouldn't be a corporate tax rate. We are in competition with other countries. We should lower. It's I'm never going to get a job again. It's going to be great. You want to treat it like picture a girl. You have two girls. What's going to attract guys? The fat slob saying, "You should go out with me because you owe me." Is that going to attract guys? Is that going to attract overseas capital? I don't think so. What's going to attract it? It's going to be the cute, hot little buxom babe. That's what it's going to be. The United States should just get rid of its corporate taxes. We'll attract all the foreign capital. We ban it, constitutionally eliminate it, get rid of it. So it's not like, well, we get rid of it like this year, and then next year when or 4 years when the next president of the Congress, whatever, is reelected, new politicians are reelected, or we're just going to jack it up again. And then all that investment that you made, now you get to pay taxes on it. Right? That's not going to have people flooding our economy with investment. Right? I could champion a single sales tax. There should not be any more than one tax. The sales tax, you can get rid of the IRS. It's none of anybody's damn business what anybody makes. No matter what you people think, whose other money you're entitled to, it's not your business. If we had a flat sales tax, not only would people mind their own P's and Q's, but none of you would have to file tax returns. You wouldn't have to do it every year. You just pay the tax like you're at Walmart. You pay the 7% state income or sales tax. It'd be the same thing with the federal. And the other great thing about a sales tax, not only does it simplify it, and you get a ton of people investing in here, not to mention a lot of people probably want to move here, productive people. You know the exact price of government. Right now, if we were to, stats vary, but roughly it'd be a 29% sales tax. Now some people would argue say 21, but let's just say it's 29 for the sake of argument. Well, now you know that we should pay for the children's health care. Well, that's going to jack it up to 32%. You know right off the bat what the cost of government is, and then you can judge and guess whether or not you're actually getting your bang for your buck. Right now, there's so many different taxes, hidden here, hidden there, fees, blah, 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 progressive taxation, you get a dollar, long-term capital gains, short-term capital gains. In the end, you don't know what the price of government is, and most of you are too damn lazy. You don't get your net check, fuda, suda, yuda, kuda, huda, woda. You don't care about that. Oh, here's my check. Oh, yeah. Government sucks, I hate paying taxes. Oh, won't someone think of the children and the poor and the elderly? I vote with my heart. Why are my taxes so high? You guys are, gotta be adults. Look this stuff up. The larger point, there is only one way out of this recession. There's only one way. And I'm not telling you the way I'd like it to be. I'm not telling you the way I think it should be. I'm telling you the only effing way out of this is by championing the private sector, is to get that thing growing and booming. And there's a lot of capacity for it. Right now you have those who want to work, they're demoralized, they're wiped out. And I know a certain segment of the population that I'm part of, but I won't go into that detail. A lot of, especially men, but some women too, a lot of men are just saying, screw it. They're throwing in the towel, they're not having kids, they're not starting families. That means we don't buy houses, we don't buy fancy new cars, we don't buy new furniture, and that doesn't help keep other people employed. There's no demand. We're scaling down. Why would we work hard when our stuff is going to be taxed at a 40%, 50% rate? Right? So, lost my train of thought. But I'm sorry, that's where I was going. If you can reinvigorate that group of people to come back and start working hard by promising them, hey, we're not going to take more than 20% of your stuff, cool. If you get rid of regulations, what are you people thinking with the Keystone Pipeline? I know a bunch of you worthless, primarily Democrat and leftist activists have nothing better to do, and you don't have anything really genuine to offer this country or this world. So you're going to bitch and whine about something just because it's easier to pick that as a target, so you get warm little fuzzies like you're doing something in the world, like you're protesting. Ooh, yeah, you stopped the pipeline. Good for you. Not one of you looked up fracking. Not one of you actually found out whether or not it's really... I'm sorry, not fracking, the pipeline. You never bothered to find out that there wasn't one oil leak in, 78 or something. It's proven to be safe, but you never cared about that. It's more important that you get your little champion crusaderism warm fuzzies in your stomach and make everybody else in the country suffer. Right? You people were not going to get to come back to reality and actually produce something of value. But, again, you lower the taxes, get everyone to come in, people start working harder, they get to keep the majority of their stuff. You got tons of capital sitting overseas, not to mention domestically, that could flood this market if you just quit it with the villainizing of corporations. And I understand if you hate the banks. I understand I hate GE. I hate it when you have lobbyists coming in and bribing Congress to get them rent-seeking privileges. I understand that, okay? Get rid of that. But I'm saying in the meantime, let's get other companies here too. There's no point to punish punitively corporations and employers. So there's another potential there. Third, this is more of a societal, sociological thing. People are slow in this country. I mean, this is not like the guys got back from World War II and it's 1945 and they've just gone out and kicked ass and took names and they got great work ethics. Right now, you got people, the corporate sector is so dysfunctional and it's so politicized and it's so corrupt. I don't mean that in a money, I mean it's impaired, it's crippled because of, and no one's, there's no leaders, there's no bravado, and I guess I can't really, it's another topic, too big of a topic to tackle here, but there's a lot of capacity in this country to turn it around and dwarf our problems. And again, the only way out of this is through economic growth, and I got news for you. If we can go and get 6, 7, 8% real economic, our GDP, real gross domestic product growth per year, our debt problems go away. Your Social Security problem goes away. And the reason why is that the economic growth grows so much that it shrinks relative to what we produce, our debt. It's kind of like if you got a mortgage and you pay $1,000 a month on your mortgage and you're only making $30,000 a year, that's pretty, you're pretty tight on your budget. But if all of a sudden you get promoted and you make $100,000 a year or $300,000 a year, well, that little $1,000 a month payment on your mortgage is nothing. And it's the same thing throughout the history of the world. Forget the United States, the history of the world. If you look at, say, North Korea, not to go a completely other extreme, in theory they spend all their money, they're communists, and we're going to help the poor and everything's communal, da-da-da-da-da. Well, yeah, they have 100% government spending, good for them, but their GDP per capita is about $1,000 per person. People in this country are worried about, well, that person only has $30,000, while that one has $90,000. That's so unfair. Yeah, but you don't understand, the fact letting that guy make $90,000 allowed him to create the software that made it so that you could order something more efficiently online, and Walmart never lowered its price. So the guy making $30,000 a year can actually enjoy a spending or purchasing power of $30,000 per year, while his North Korean counterpart can't get rice for his family for an entire week. My larger point is that look at what each system promises and what the end result is. If you're going to go with a socialist route, you're going to kill the incentive for other people to work. Why? And honestly, right now, I don't work anywhere near what I could do, and I don't see a point in it. I actually have lost any I've actually lost any fear if I had to collect a government check, because if the economy is 40% government, boy, sometimes you're not. It's almost impossible to make it through the entire your entire working life not collecting some kind of government check. Right? But getting back to the North Korea and the United States thing, the United States grew through the private sector because that's the only thing that's going to produce anything of value. That's the only reason to have a government or an economy. That grew by leaps and bounds, so that, yeah, we may only spend 5% on charity, but we produce so much stuff that 5% dwarfs what the Soviet Union spent, what Cuba spends, what East Germany spent, and what North Korea spent. That's why our poor is the richest poor on the face of the planet. That's the only way. It's the only way out of this. Now, I can't prove it to you. I know there's a lot of you, the private man, I believe, a blogger, he called it ego investment. And I've ran into this before, where there's people who are 65 years old, and you think they're going to be older and they're going to be wiser, and they're just as dumb and uninformed. And again, not dumb, I shouldn't let my emotions run, but you are uninformed. If you can't explain why printing off money won't solve the economic problems, if you can't explain that to yourself, then you really are ignorant about economics, and you really shouldn't vote. I'm being deadly serious. Right? If you don't understand economics to that basic level, then you really should stay out of it, because you don't know what you're talking about. But hopefully with this video and kind of the little bit of economics lesson that I've given you about what is stuff, how economies grow, what matters, how money really does matter, it's the stuff that money buys. If that starts to make sense to you, and even if you agree with me politically or not, go look this stuff up on the internet and do some research. Because honest to God, look, I'm no big fan of Mitt Romney. You know, he was a governor before. I'm very much against former politicians running for office. But Jesus H. Christ, Barack Obama, are you kidding? Look at the budget. Look at the deficit. And before you say we spend all of our money on defense, look it up. Don't believe me. Don't believe Barack. Just look it up. Because I got news for you. If we don't do something about it, and you people don't get unignorant or get educated, let's put it that, if you don't get informed and you keep voting with your emotions and your feelings and you don't start to sit and think this stuff through, you know, fine by me. Because I ain't got kids, I ain't got a lot of assets, I don't really care, I've kind of given up. That's why I sign off with enjoy the decline. Smoking my cigars, riding my motorcycle around. I'm not saving up for a 401k. I'm not saving up for an IRA until we get a balanced budget, because that stuff's going to get confiscated. Money's going to have to come somewhere. But for those of you who do have kids, you do have a house, you do have assets, and you're going to go and vote for flowers and unicorns and puppies. Well, don't be surprised if all of a sudden the bill comes down and you got to pay it. Because you're the only one with an asset. They're going to go from taxing income to taxing wealth, mark my words. And you may have that nice cushy little 401k or 403b that you think you're going to retire on. Well, look up what Argentina and Bolivia did with their private pensions. This is not scare tactic stuff. This is not me trying to say, this is me trying to say, hey, if you have a kid or you have assets, you have skin in the game. And you cannot afford to be, well, I just feel. Don't tell me you feel. You don't be stupid. Don't feel. Think. More importantly than think, no, look it up. So that's my stupid attempt to save this economy. Hopefully it'll convince some of you, but you know, like I said, I'll still continue to enjoy the decline, and I won't be investing in a 401k until we get a balanced budget. So, Buy Worthless, great book. I wrote it for all you kids out there who are unemployed and you have your master's in bunny quilts or whatever. I don't know what you can get a degree in, peace studies or something like that. Or if you're a high school kid and you're thinking about what to not study, go get the book Worthless. You can get it on Amazon. So, toodles.